Hello, everyone. Welcome to Authenticity. I am Anna Toothman, and my guest today is Dawn Lucht. She is a relationship coach. She also is heartfelt. What did I read? You also work with aroma.
Yes,
Go
I'm
ahead.
a therapist, so I use essential oils with acupuncture points, and also I use it for emotional imprinting. And I'm a relationship coach. I'm the founder of the Heartful Academy, and I've got my own podcast called the New Dawn Podcast and a YouTube channel. In a nutshell.
That's a lot. That's amazing. I'm so excited that you have your own podcast as well. I'm going to share a little bit about Dawn that I know about. We both have a beloved sister in common on the New Earth Institute, which used to be known as Think with Your Heart. Her name came up on the feed, and I was like, I'm going to look for her. And sure enough, I was right. That hunch that came in, that little tap, in my heart, and I was just like, the sister, I want to connect with her. And it is a lovely feeling. It's a reconnection, I'm sure. And you said that you've been with New Earth Institute since 2016.
Yes, yes.
And how did you get connected with Lauren?
Okay, I'll try and make it brief because these stories are never just one thing, are they? But
Sure.
back in 2012, my son was born. He didn't sleep very well. And so I was up all night long and all day, either carrying him or holding him whilst he slept. So I would listen to audiobooks and podcasts and things like that. And I came across Rich Roll, who's an endurance athlete. And I read his book and then got to the end, and he had literally just started a podcast. He's on like episode 680 or something now. But it was the first ever podcast, and he recorded it with his wife, which is Julie Pyatt. And Julie Pyatt is one of my favorite people, and she was part of energetic synthesis. I don't know if you know that. And Think with Your Heart, as it was then. And I was listening to her, and I just felt such a connection to what she was saying. And she was such a light in my soul at that time. I was going through a really, really, really tough time. And she just casually said one day, "Oh, and I've been reading Lauren's newsletters from thinkwithyourheart.com." I was like, right, off we go. And that was it. Yeah. And the moment I read her stuff, I was like, okay, this feels like home too. So
I've had the honor of having a conversation with her on one-on-one.
oh, fabulous.
And she looks like my first cousin. So similar. And through that conversation, we realized we had been together in many lifetimes and that there was no wonder that I had connected with her such early on. She is a brilliant light and a great scribe. If people don't know who Lauren is from the New Earth Institute, I highly recommend looking her up. But this podcast is about you, Dawn, and myself, both of us being coaches. Your niche is more a relationship. And relationships are not just based on um, husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend. I feel like relationships come in so many facets, at work, our friends, our family. And so, as a relationship coach, embodying in 2024, has that changed for you this year and how you coach?
Yeah, oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I guess from my perspective, the biggest realization is that every single thing that I interact with, from my business to money to relationships to my son to how I look after my house, how I enjoy my own life, is all to do with how I relate in my relationships. And if I'm having problems with money, then it's to do with my relationship with myself primarily. And they're all just mirrors, they're all reflections of what's going on with me. And when you're in relationship with somebody who's equally of the same or similar perspective, it's really absolutely like nothing I've ever experienced up until now, because both of you taking full responsibility for what you bring into the relationship and also how you are, means that the level and quality of harmony is unlike anything I've ever experienced before, which means that you get to experience so much genuine flourishment and love and expansion and all of the things that I thought were never going to be possible in this lifetime. I had an inkling that maybe it was there, but I also had the underlying belief that it wasn't for me, that I was unlovable. And so, yeah, does that answer your question?
Of course it does. I ask these questions because of listeners, like when people think or feel the same way, that they're unlovable or don't understand, and that everything is a mirror, and that it's about the relationship we have with ourselves, how we take care of our home, our car, our ourselves. Our body is a reflection of the relationships around us. Really, that saying I tell my friends, my dear friends, is if you can't love yourself wholly and completely, then you really can't love someone else, or that be reflected back to you.
The recording's a little bit bitty. It keeps stopping.
Authenticity is important to me. Dawn, I still see you. So if you
I can see you, but
can hear
it's not very,
me,
it's not clear.
can you wave? I saw a blink. Oh no. Okay. You can always jump. You can always jump out and come back on if that helps. Hey Ray, I can see that you're watching. Can you hear us? Can you give me a heart? Well, we're just gonna wait to see when Dawn comes back on. Here we go. That was quick. Here we go. Our vibe is so high. We're affecting the internet.
I know, I can't hear you at all, and I can't see you. Oh.
Our energies are so strong. I can see where. There you are. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Perfect. We need to bring our energy level back. We affect the internet. We affect technology, our frequency when we get it's 12:12 here. So, there's no coincidences. Now, we were talking about how it has changed your relationship and the way you coach and your awareness. You said that the gentleman that you're in relationship right now, his name is Ben.
Yeah.
And Ben came into your life before or after you became a relationship coach?
After, no, before. Um, I'm trying to, it was around the same sort of time. And the reason the name change was important was because I've always known that everything's been about understanding yourself. And for a while, I called myself a transformation coach. And whilst, at the end point of what we're doing is helping people move through their own life experience in a much clearer and more, in a much clearer and more heart-centered way, without trying to bring in too many cliches, what I recognized was that it wasn't so much my relationship with Ben that created the catalyst for the relationship, but understanding the fundamental principle that everything is a reflection of how I am in relationship to myself. And I'm very interested in the high level of why we do stuff and then the how we do stuff. Those two things occupy my thoughts pretty much all of the time. And the why we do stuff is always, for me, in my worldview, linked to the how. And the how is, how do you show up? How do you feel? How are you thinking? How are you loving? How are you receiving? How are you relating based on your childhood, based on society, based on whatever, your trauma? And then the why is, okay, what is it that you really want? What do you really want to achieve? What do you really want for yourself? And the answers always come back down to, who do you believe you are? Who do you believe? What do you believe about yourself? Will create your reality, will then create your and manifest your outcomes. And if you're not aware of that thought pattern and those emotional patterns, then it's your unconscious that's creating the life from a reactive, wounded place rather than intentional and creative place. And that matters to me a lot.
We're both very passionate about that.
Mm.
That's why we're in service.
Yeah.
Why many of us heard that call to step forward and do our own inner work so that we can come forth now to assist those. And you said so many things that are important. I know that people hear that, that could be cliche, as you say, to say, well, your thoughts create your reality. But yet someone, right, you can say, well, yes, but they do. But someone can look at you like, okay, whatever. Right? We could
But we're not speaking to those people, are we, Anna? We're speaking to the people who on some level are resonating or feeling something or are curious about that. I think that's a problem that so many of us who are in service, we automatically go straight into the what are the naysayers going to say about this? And I'm like, okay, well, let's just put a pin in that, because that's not who I'm speaking to right now. I'm speaking to me 5-10 years ago who needed to hear some clarity, some resonance, and maybe not understand why, but still take steps towards something that I felt was like that heart pull, that desire for more, that, okay, I'm curious, I don't know what you're talking about, but I need this information, I need this experience, and I want to know more,
That's beautiful. They're open to it.
Yeah.
Right. And the consciousness level of humanity, hi Wendy, is at a level where they're ready. They're ready to receive.
Yeah. And we're ready to talk about it now.
Your life, it consumes us when you said that's, that your thoughts are around the hows and the what and the whys. And it could be mine as, goes very esoteric at times, it can, above the monad. It could go to, goes way out, and understand having this, how creation itself, the hologram is working, and how like all that, like I go into the science and the physics of it and the quantum, how we go in different stages, and why the Lion's Gate coming up, the importance of it, like how it all is connected.
I mean, I'm constantly astounded at the connections. One of my life themes is to learn how to come out of that rigid need for control and be always the one making everything happen, and to really embody the feminine with the masculine, the feminine flow with the masculine action, but really sitting with that feeling of, all right, let's just breathe out for a second. Let's allow the experience to work through and with us. And when I do that, what I find is the level of synchronicity that I couldn't even have predicted. Like, for example, the partner that I have now is as obsessed with the human experience and understanding the traps and what happens and the healing and wounding and stuff, that he loves to talk about it as much as I do. And when I tell my mum that, it's inconceivable that somebody would want to talk about this stuff as much as I do. And not just her, like even my best mate, she's just like, this is absolutely insane that you found somebody like that. And I'm like, I didn't find him. Like, he was just a vibrational match and has helped my experience, my coaching business, my healing in a way that I never anticipated, ever. And I didn't write down on some vision board, I must have this, he must look like that, it must be like this, it must be like that. I didn't do any of that. I just said, universe, do your best. This is my desire. Please fill in the gaps. And that worked for me. That continues to work for me. And that, for me, is the ultimate form of relationship with the universe and the co-creation of my life experience, and to be the most of service that I can possibly be.
You're frozen. Oh, you're back. Oh boy. I want to unpack that for a second. Because what's really important is the relationship you have with the universe and the relationship you have with yourself.
For the longest time, I believed I was in a malevolent universe, right? And now I know that's not to be true. But even that in itself has taken a lot of exploration and curiosity, and releasing, forgiving, understanding, all of that kind of stuff. But that's a massive mindset shift.
And being okay with not knowing.
Majorly.
There's a part of this, the acceptance of it's okay if you don't know what it looks like, what the next step is or what the next stage is. And I find, like you said, is if we stay in flow, synchronicity, when we stop to, even if I'm like, oh, I want to be done at this time, or I want to try to, oh, I'm running late, or I need to rush. As soon as I start trying to rush or change anything, it changes the energy field.
My God, my son has been the one of the most incredible teachers for that, because when he was little, he never did anything in the schedule that I wanted or needed, right? In order for me to be happy. he would just nap when he was tired, which was never when I wanted him to. He was hungry when I didn't want him to. He was, all of the things. And I realized, because it was really painful to make my will go on top of his will, it just created so much intensity that I was like, okay, I'm going to just trust that this, if we just both flow together, that there's really a reason for that. And there was, and there is. And the main thing was I wanted to make sure that we had harmony, him and I together. And if I was always imposing my will on the situation, it went against that. And he kind of withered and came in on himself. And so did I. And we had this weird power dynamic at the age of 2. It's a lot. So release and flow, Anna. I think you're totally right. Absolutely.
Really, I find that that's what works for me in this moment, is to just let go and trust that if you're coming from a place of authenticity, being your authentic self, and you're coming from your heart in each moment, then just doing what you want next. What brings you joy, more joy, do that next. Just stay in that joy and just follow that.
Absolutely. I call that following breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
And if you, and I think what we're describing when I'm working with my clients is almost like we have to describe a completely new way of being with ourselves and interacting with life. And one of them is, okay, what's the heart resonance? What's your desire? What's the pull? Are you feeling a pull towards these things? Or are you sitting in your shoulds? Are you constantly going, I should be doing this, I should be doing that? Is my whole life created on this kind of constriction of self? Or are you following the breadcrumbs? One of my favorite teachers used to say, the next step has to be shown to you in the 11th hour, because everything is like a Harry Potter staircase. I don't know if you've ever seen it, and it's all just coming together at the exact time at the 11th hour. So you better be so connected to how much this means to you and what you're feeling, and learn your inner intuition and inner guidance so you can traverse this and hold the experience of fear and make sure you're in right alignment with that, whilst waiting for that next step to come along. And that's where the trust comes in, right?
Yeah. For sure. The trust is a big one.
Yeah. I love it.
This is definitely a passion of mine. Wendy says, that seems to be getting stronger lately. We must be careful with the energy we are putting out. If I force it, normally I have an accident. So
what if, with relation to what?
Because I had said, like, if I try to control something or force something, like, especially if I've noticed, even driving, I've mentioned this on my podcast, that if I'm in a rush, everything will stop me. A school bus, another light, a person, an old person, to the point where you start laughing because you're like, okay, you're right. I'm not in flow. Thanks for reminding me. The gift is in that. Is that if you're paying attention and come back to center, because we are learning as we go, we're becoming masters of our own universe, right, Dawn? And so every time, as long as we can catch ourselves, right, it's okay. It's an ebb and flow. We're not perfect, not looking for perfection. It's the opposite of what we've been told.
Yes. And if you feel at any point you have, see, this is the thing. If we're talking about relationships, the majority of us have had this idea that in order to be lovable, we have to meet a certain set of unachievable criteria in order to be loved and accepted. And that set of criteria is so ambiguous that the only way we can counterbalance that is to be perfect. And that is absolutely, not only is it impossible, but it's also not true. And yet, to really understand and let go of the fact that the validation that you're looking for is from yourself. The love that you're looking for now is a question of reparenting ourselves. Then the dynamic completely has the opportunity to shift. And that's so important, because then the cornerstones of compassion and empathy and forgiveness, like, if there are 3 things that are going to get hardwired into you on this journey, it's those 3 for sure. Right? We say slowly walking forwards and backwards sometimes.
That's right. Oh my gosh. Tristan said spiritual beings being human. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. We are. It's not one or the other, because through this awakened journey, when we first start out, we want to go on this crusade and tell everyone, oh, we're more than just this human. We go through what I've learned from myself. The only thing I could speak of is what I had to do, is that my way showing came from me embodying it first.
Yeah.
I felt that I could not have a session with someone, that I couldn't teach you something until I had embodied it.
For sure.
And that was really important for me, that I understood my karmic lessons, that I understood this mastery that I so desired for myself.
Yeah.
And how each of us are so uniquely here to assist the whole. Because there's no other Dawn and there's no other Anna. And neither one of us need to be the same.
Yep. And finding complete validation again for the unique piece of your puzzle.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of times I've said to myself, or the people that I work with, or even people in my personal life, like, there's no reason why you're made. There's no mistake as to why you're made the way you're made. Like, to imagine there was any part of you that was ill thought through or misplaced or a mistake is just absolutely absurd. So the question then becomes, are you unapologetically getting curious about what you love, what you are drawn to, what you want to do, what draws you forward? Like, do that with every fiber of your being, because it will not only bring you satisfaction, but it will 100% affect the people around you as well. Yes, please.
Right? Again, vibration equals our reality. And
Yeah.
that came to me a few years ago. I woke up in the middle of the night. It was 4:44 in the morning. And I heard, your vibration equals your reality.
Yeah. I was thinking, I've thought a lot about that over the years, because I guess I've been what you'd class as a shadow worker for the best part of 20 years. It's not a role that I really hold in the same way anymore, but it's definitely something that I have been to the depths of darkness and shame and all of the things, right? And yet at the same time, your vibration being your reality is 100% true, whilst for me not shaming the fact that you are where you are and learning to have a whole-bodied experience with what you're going through right now is also important. Like, there's even your experience, there's no mistake there, so love and acceptance and understanding and compassion for the hard times that you're facing, and knowing that there's a complete divinely guided experience for those of us who are shadow workers, who spend way longer than we'd like digging through dirt, mud, and pain, and all of the things to bring it to light, to bring awareness and change, and catalyst for more love is important.
I always like, because my audience that listens is diverse, and if they're listening right now and doesn't really understand your verbiage of shadow work.
All right. So imagine that there is a kaleidoscope range of emotion, and some of them, just like on the color wheel, have darker shades, and some of them have lighter shades. For me, my life experience has included abuse and trauma and death and suffering and pain and all of those kind of experiences, and sitting in them, like panic attacks, anxiety, depression, sitting in them like they were my own cage, and really feeling unable to come out of that until I'd fully understood the shadow. And so that to me is what I would call a shadow worker, somebody who has a contract to sit in the mud until the mud becomes lighter or more understood, or having curiosity about that, and never ever bypassing it or shaming it or feeling like it has to be different, but finding full love and acceptance for that.
In the times of your shadow work, were you aware you were doing shadow work?
Not until about 2018 did I understand I had a contract with that. I up until that point, I thought there was something fundamentally broken and wrong with me. And then I came to realize that that wasn't the case at all. And that every single thing that I've learned about those experiences helps me be exceptionally present and clear and compassionate and loving and hope-filled with every single person that I'm in contact with in my business. But no, for the longest time, I just thought I was being persecuted. But that, again, is part of the shadow. That feeling of persecution is part of being a shadow worker. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
I would say that many, because we lived in a dualistic world,
Yeah.
that shadow work is present for many souls on this journey to self-awareness, have been in the trauma life. Many people have experienced so much in different degrees, just in a different play.
Mm-hmm.
For our own souls' lessons, for our soul's journey, for our soul's growth.
Mm. For sure, for sure. And I think the way that this life experience is put together is that we're born into what I would say like an age of suffering. And the idea is to integrate these aspects of this so that we can find our way through and out and through. Finally, I call them our hell loops, right?
Right.
The patterns that feel like they create hopelessness and helplessness.
Yeah.
And how to circuit break and find the door, whilst completely understanding that everybody is having a similar experience of suffering in their own way. You know what I
In
mean?
their own way. Exactly. And I speak about this looping and I speak about this looping
Mm.
when we're unconscious.
Yeah.
We kind of move around like robots. We turn on the light at in a certain step. We then do this, then we do that. We do everything in so automatic. From the time we set our alarm and the times that we eat, like everybody goes to eat at noon here, and everybody has dinner at 5:30 or 7, and it's like, who said that you had to eat at noon? You don't.
Mm.
You don't have to eat unless you're hungry for for
Yeah.
shit's sakes, like we're evaluating everything about this program
Mm.
that we live in and that we call Earth, and what we're embodying. We're embodying, letting go of all the distortion, and the veil is thinning for many of us, and understanding that we're the creators.
To me, this life experience comes down to the transformation of two things. Any thought or belief system or feeling that reinforcing is a feeling of powerlessness or self-rejection. Those two things are the fundamental core for every single life experience. So if you can focus your attention on whatever dynamic is coming up for you most prominently right now, and most of the time they're interlinked in some way, and find ways to remember and connect to how powerful you actually are. And I'm saying this from a position of having been in an abusive and truly awful relationship for 12 years and the outcome of that. So I know what helplessness, powerlessness feels and looks like. And yet, even now, I recognize that I was always powerful. I just didn't know it at the time. And then fully learning to love ourselves. And that's, I guess, the end goal. But any increment, any 2% increase along that path is already such a cause for celebration that I want everyone to just to be giving themselves a pat on the back if they've made any form of moving that needle towards something that feels better and more loving for themselves,
Uh, of course, when we're in it, we don't realize it, right? We're in this situation and we feel helpless or trapped, or, we have this, but I have to, I don't have nowhere to go, or, fear. It's all around fear. One of the comments is, as we expand, we understand that suffering comes mainly from our thoughts about any situation.
Yeah, and it's the thoughts about our identity, who we believe that we are. And that's why it comes back down to the relationship you have with yourself. Who do you believe that you are? Joe Dispenza's an awesome, awesome, awesome voice in this topic, challenging that from a very real perspective, that we have a flexibility and a choice available to us, but it just depends at what point you're ready to hear those kind of things. Because if you'd said that to me 5 years ago,
Exactly.
I mean, there's no
Yeah.
way I would have listened. So
Yeah, sometimes, and I speak about this when with my closest friends, because I'm a mom and a grandma. And when my daughter's in it, she doesn't want to hear my coaching. She wants me to be her mom. She wants me to embrace her and listen and, and be there for her. And then I have this understanding that she's on her own soul's journey and her own path and her own awareness. And so are the people around us, our friends, different level of awarenesses, is that we allow, because there is no wrong or right here.
That's right. Exactly.
You stay out of this judgment for what's anyone at any time is doing and experiencing for themselves, you realize that it is divinely orchestrated for
Yeah.
them.
Yes. Oh my God, I have judged other people's experiences so much, and I have been judged myself. And it's just like energetic vomit being spread out into the cosmos, into the atmosphere. And I just think that there's no need for it. Like, focus on yourself, focus
Yeah,
on your experience, focus on what you're doing, and just know that everyone is doing their best and they're experiencing. Like, one of my favorite books is called Oneness. I don't know if you've heard of that book.
I
uh,
have.
you have. I love it. And one of the things it says in there is, we're all here to learn through experience, and for you to say to somebody else that their experience is wrong says more about you than it does about them,
Of course.
you know.
And we're really stepping into that awareness more and more and more. Those mirrors are letting you know. And I immediately, are you in judgment? In judgment. Whenever we step into judgment, we drop into our vibration, come back down in frequency. When
Yeah.
we're in flow, we we have that knowing everything's perfect, and our conversations reflect that. As soon as we stop being present, the vibration changes again. It depends where you are in this um, journey, because at this point I have a quantum awareness of my reality.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for understanding that even when you drop into judgment, that's still
Mhm.
okay. What the important piece is what you do with that. Like, do you notice it and then go, oh, oh, or do you just go, right, I'm noticing it and I'm doubling down. I'm going to say my piece and I'm going to make them hear it and I'm going to keep going and going. So it it's what you do with that, because I couldn't have learned without dropping up and down, doing that. And I still do
Yeah.
it now. Like, I'm
Yeah.
still in self-doubt and bits and pieces, and I'm learning and exploring, and just human person having a spiritual experience. No, spiritual person having a human experience.
That's a big one for people, is that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, right? It's the good, bad, and the ugly. It's all of it. It's why it's called an experience. I've one of the techniques I learned last few weeks, or even I don't know, I've been kind of uh, having this awareness about being a quantum being, and then you can recall a situation back. You can come back into the heart, center yourself, take that moment, and you can come back into the conversation.
Oh, 100%. 100%. When, as part of being a relationship coach, one of the things that is really key to mastering healthy relationships is learning the art of communication. And I'm not just saying the art of speaking words and hearing other people's words. I'm talking about the energetic dynamics of, once you've mastered that, then you can feel the frequency of the conversation. And when it feels like it's jaggedy, when it feels like it's received, when the other person is in flow, when there's cohesion between you, and synchronicity and resonance, like, that's just glorious to be in that space. And then anything else outside of that is going to feel so completely different, that you're going to want to bring it back. The more you allow yourself, the more you're going to want to have more of that. You know what I mean?
I do. I really do, Don. I do understand that when you have meaningful conversations,
Yeah.
when you're so connected, is what we called previously on other shows as being in the zone. It's not just being in the zone playing sports or what you're creating. It's conversations,
Mm.
connections, and relationships, and that you're present, so ever present that you want to be in this conversation. That
Yeah.
you and I, Dawn, chose to connect at this moment to have this depth of conversation. Because we can get caught up in and fumble our words and
Mhm.
try to make the show perfect and have a great podcast. And I didn't realize I couldn't open up your bio, but I really wanted you on the show because I feel like as I'm growing and learning about this experience,
Mhm.
is that it happens in the moments when we're most present and we're just authentic and we're doing it. And part of my role is showing that it is okay not that I'm not looking for perfection and that I don't have to do it like other people do it, and that I want to have real conversations and show
Mm.
the reality of our world is this beautiful mix and a dance,
Mhm.
right? Where we get dressed and we put our makeup on and we get ready and we have this fabulous dance with one another, but also share the truth and the love and the nuggets that come with embodying this
Have you ever
knowledge.
have you ever read the book Braiding Sweetgrass?
I haven't.
It's it's by a lady who's a botanist, and she talks about her botany and the relationship with botany and her Native American roots through sweetgrass and a whole heap of stuff. And it's such a book that describes the beauty of nature that you feel almost punch drunk on the love through her eyes and her descriptions of her experience of being so deeply connected to nature that reading the book just feels like an absolute delight.
Mm.
And that's what I want for life. I want to be so utterly besotted by my own life and punch drunk on the beauty of the smallest things and the big things. And, you know,
I
even,
love it. I know.
yeah, even the hardcore things. Like my friends and I now have so much humor when there's some really intense stuff going on that we can still find ourselves at the bottom of the well with water up our noses and our skirts above our heads, and we're looking at each other and we're still laughing. You know, that I think is the beauty of keeping it real, of keeping it authentic, of being truthful and honest about this experience. And in those moments, I find beauty. I find God in how that's all put together. You know.
I would agree so hardly and completely with you, Dawn. Falling in love with yourself and life and showing up as love is the outcome of this love that you're embodying. Like everything that you go out right before the show, my roommate said, "Look, a dragonfly." And I'm like, "Where?" Like I had never seen a dragonfly or something, right? Every way shore says something, everything is brand new when we see it. Like for me anyway, I experience life in so many colors and vibrancy and it's delicious and aromatic, everything smells good. There's aromas and I want to feel and touch everything. Like you know, like I get the gift of life, like the gift of being here on this planet is our birthright.
Yeah. And
To
moving,
realize that.
transforming, and integrating these really human, hardcore experiences alongside that. Like, to me, that's the whole point of it. If I had known that ascension was like 99% a deep dive into psychology, and that I'd probably come out with some sort of psychology degree. You know, that's a shocker. Like, I didn't understand that I would have to know so many of these terms. And obviously, there's my piece of the puzzle in there too.
Sure.
But that's part of the deal here, isn't it? To fully understand the traps and the mindset and the experiences. Yeah, it's it's a lot of learning.
Well, it's contagious because we have read it, in Lauren's report, Dawn. She'll say people will want to know how how is it that you're like this? Why are you so happy? Why are you so calm? Or why you're okay with everything? You really do see everything as beautiful? Or how did you get there? So by us being that way and walking in our joy, the world around us is naturally curious.
And, my favorite saying, I don't know if you have this saying in America, but I've repeatedly had to put on my big girl pants.
We do have that saying. We have put your big girl pants on. Oh, yes. Yep.
Like, I've had to learn what my own courage feels like. I've had to learn what my own strength feels like. And I've just had to keep following the breadcrumbs. But there have been lots of moments where I have had to put my big girl pants on.
Well, I woke up irritable today, and I meditated. I always quantify and qualify my day and get centered. But there was an irritability that I've experienced today, Dawn, and I'm not sure. I haven't got my finger on it. I don't know if it's the planets or I've outgrown this situation or what it is. There's this right now. I'm experiencing some sort of I don't know
A
how to
contraction.
describe. Um, I don't know. There's a hint of irritability somewhere, and I go out, step outside. I took some deep breaths before the show, but there is something present, and it could just be us moving into 4th of July. Freedom codes are coming in. If anything that we're moving out of June into July, maybe coming over with me to let go of. I did have some clearing dreams last night, which usually kind of sits with me throughout the day. And then one moment it's just poof, gone.
Yeah.
So you're in England. What town in England do you live in for our
I live
guests?
in I I'd like to say I randomly ended up in Essex, which is on the east coast, not far from the sea. Um, yeah, really random. I never in a million years thought I'd end up here, and yet I actually really like it. I mean, the weather's shocking, but on the whole, it's a lovely place to be.
What do you mean it's shocking? Like, is it super cold or is it?
Um, I'm a warm-blooded, sun worshipping, hot weathered tropic person.
Sure.
Yeah, so living in mostly cold, mostly damp, mostly grey gets you down after a while. So yeah, I thrive in sunshine.
Yeah.
I'm born for a reason, I reckon. Um, and living in England is just not really conducive to that. So, most English people moan about the weather, and I do that even more so. So
Dawn, do you do any coaching online or is it all in person?
it's all online. All of my one-to-one stuff is online, except for I do some in-person events and workshops for organizations around identity and things like that. But yeah, all of my one-to-ones are online actually.
I think that's perfect because being that I'm in the US and you're in England, and if any of my guests or listeners are watching this or on the replay, reach out to Dawn. Dawn has a Facebook page, and I'll that you can find her. Where else can people find you, Dawn?
Facebook's a really good place. I do love Instagram for like daily postings and stuff in the stories. And my newsletter, which I can send you the link if you like.
I would love that. Or you can attach it to the as a comment and on the podcast, and people can reach out to you because you're lovely, you're confident, and you embody what you speak. And that to me is authenticity. That is authentic. When I go to someone for some feedback or some connection, I don't want someone who just read it in a book. It's important to me.
And that's definitely something that is extremely important to me, is that anyone that I sit with needs to know that I've been through it and I know what's holding a safe, non-judgmental and loving space looks and feels like, and how transformative that is. And just that I get it. We get it, don't we, Anna? We really get it because we've done it and we're doing it. And yeah, you can't get that from a book.
You can't. It comes from experiences. Again, we have went to the lowest frequencies and experiences that we needed to show us what we didn't know about ourselves.
There was quite a bit, Anna, I found.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Beautiful. Dawn, stay in touch with me.
Absolutely, it would be my pleasure.
So
Likewise.
lovely to feel you. I can feel your energy. It's very valuable and it's lovely. Thank you for being on my podcast.
Thank you for having me, Anna.
And hopefully, everyone enjoyed what we had to say about relationships and how they are our mirrors.
Mm.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. See you next time. Bye bye, Dawn. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks again, my dear.